Okay, so today we're diving into something pretty fascinating, pH balance. This one's especially for you because, well, you were the one who brought it to our attention.
Yeah, you sent over some really interesting stuff from Healthline.
And honestly, it's way more complex than I initially thought.
It really is.
So we figured why not take a deep dive and try to unpack it together.
Exactly.
I mean, pH balance is kind of fundamental, right? It affects pretty much every system in the body.
In a way, yeah, you could say that.
So, where should we even start with this? Like, for someone who's hearing about this for the first time, how would you explain what pH balance even is?
Well, at its core, pH balance is all about the balance between acidity and alkalinity.
Okay, so like a scale.
Exactly. It's like a scale. And you know how we measure that? It's through the pH scale.
Right, right.
It goes from 0 to 14.
Mm.
And right in the middle, at 7, that's neutral. Anything below 7 is considered acidic, and anything above 7 is alkaline.
I see. So it's like a spectrum.
Yeah, absolutely. And different parts of your body need different pH levels to function properly.
Oh, that's interesting.
For example, your stomach. It needs a very acidic environment to digest food,
Makes sense, yeah.
but your blood needs to be slightly alkaline.
So it's not like one size fits all when it comes to pH.
Not at all. Each organ, each fluid in your body has its own ideal pH range. And your body works really hard to keep everything in balance.
Like a juggling act.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
And one of the major players in this balancing act, your kidneys,
Yeah, the kidney.
they play a really crucial role in filtering out excess acids and bases from your blood. They basically help maintain that pH equilibrium.
Wow, so they're like the body's pH regulators.
Exactly. They're constantly monitoring your blood and adjusting what gets excreted in your urine to keep your pH levels stable.
That's pretty amazing.
It is, yeah.
But from what I was reading in the Healthline stuff, things can go wrong, right?
Oh, absolutely. There are a lot of things that can disrupt that delicate balance. And when that happens, it can lead to what we call pH imbalances.
Right, and these imbalances, they can actually cause a whole range of problems, right?
Right, yeah.
I remember reading about something called acidosis. Is that when your body becomes too acidic?
Exactly.
Hmm.
Acidosis means there's an excess of acid in your blood or other bodily fluids.
And this acidosis thing, it can actually happen in different ways, right?
Yeah, there are different types of acidosis, each with its own specific causes.
Okay, so like what are some examples of these different types?
Well, you have lactic acidosis. That's when lactic acid builds up in your bloodstream. It can happen if you're exercising really intensely or if you have certain medical conditions.
I think I've heard of that, yeah. Lactic acid, like when your muscles are burning after a workout.
Yeah, exactly like that. And then there's diabetic acidosis. This one's a bit more serious. It's usually seen in people with diabetes, especially if their blood sugar isn't well managed.
And what causes it?
It's caused by a buildup of ketone acids in the blood. Ketones are produced when your body starts breaking down fat for energy because it doesn't have enough glucose.
Right, because the insulin isn't working properly.
Exactly. And then there's renal tubular acidosis. This is a problem with the kidneys. Basically, they're not able to remove acid from the blood effectively.
So it's like the kidneys aren't doing their job as pH regulators.
Precisely. And there's another type called hyperchloremic acidosis.
Okay, this one's new to me.
So hyperchloremic acidosis occurs when there's a low level of bicarbonate in your blood.
Bicarbonate, that rings a bell.
It acts as a buffer. It helps neutralize acids in the blood.
So if you don't have enough bicarbonate, things get too acidic.
Exactly. And finally, you have respiratory acidosis. This happens when your lungs can't get rid of enough carbon dioxide. And you know what carbon dioxide does? It forms an acid in your blood.
So it's like your breathing is affecting your pH balance.
Yeah, absolutely. Your lungs play a big role in regulating pH.
Okay, so that's acidosis. But then there's also the opposite, right? Alkalosis.
You got it.
So alkalosis is when your body becomes too alkaline.
Exactly.
And I'm guessing there are different types of alkalosis too.
You're right. There's metabolic alkalosis. And it can happen if you lose too much acid from your body.
Like how?
Well, it can happen through severe vomiting or diarrhea.
Okay, so you're losing stomach acid.
Yeah. Or it can happen if you take too many antacids.
Makes sense.
And then there's respiratory alkalosis. This one's kind of the opposite of respiratory acidosis.
So it's when your lungs are getting rid of too much carbon dioxide.
Exactly. And this can happen if you're hyperventilating, for example.
Like if you're having a panic attack.
Yeah, or if you're at a high altitude where the air is thinner.
Okay, wow. So we've got all these different types of pH imbalances, both acidosis and alkalosis, each with their own causes.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. And I'm sure our listeners are wondering, how do you even know if you have a pH imbalance?
Well, that's the tricky part. The symptoms can be pretty vague and can mimic other conditions.
So it's not like there's one telltale sign.
Not really. But there are some common symptoms that might point to a pH imbalance.
Okay, like what?
Well, for acidosis, you might experience fatigue, nausea, vomiting, shortness of breath, confusion.
And those can be symptoms of a lot of other things, too.
Exactly. And for alkalosis, you might have symptoms like muscle twitching, hand tremors, lightheadedness, confusion, nausea, vomiting. Again, pretty general.
So it sounds like it's really important to see a doctor if you suspect something's off.
Absolutely. If you're experiencing any of these symptoms, it's always best to get checked out.
And I'm guessing there are specific tests they can do to figure out what's going on.
Oh yeah, there are a few tests that can help diagnose a pH imbalance.
Like what? What kind of tests?
Well, one of the most common is a blood test called an arterial blood gas, or ABG. It measures the levels of oxygen and carbon dioxide in your blood, which can indicate a respiratory imbalance.
Right, so it's looking at how well your lungs are working.
Exactly. And they might also do a basic metabolic panel, which looks at things like your electrolytes and kidney function, which can give clues about metabolic imbalances.
Okay, so blood tests are key.
Definitely. And sometimes they might also do a urinalysis to check the pH of your urine.
I see, so it's a combination of different tests to get the full picture.
Right. And once they figure out what type of imbalance you have and what's causing it, they can start treatment.
And treatment depends on the cause, I imagine.
Absolutely. For example, if you have diabetic acidosis, they'll need to get your blood sugar under control.
With insulin, yeah.
Yeah. But if your acidosis is caused by a kidney problem, they might need to do dialysis to filter your blood.
I see.
And for respiratory imbalances, they might give you oxygen or medications to help you breathe better.
So it's really about addressing the underlying issue, not just the pH imbalance itself.
Precisely. The goal is to restore your body's natural balance.
That makes sense. Now, what about the long-term outlook for people with pH imbalances? Is it something you can fully recover from?
It really depends on the cause and how severe the imbalance was. For some people, it's a temporary thing, and they recover completely. But for others, especially those with chronic conditions like kidney disease or lung disease, it might be something they need to manage long term.
So it can be a chronic issue for some people.
Yeah, unfortunately. But even then, there are things you could do to help maintain a healthy pH balance.
Like what? What are some things people can do?
Well, a lot of it comes down to lifestyle choices. Eating a balanced diet, staying hydrated, getting enough exercise, managing stress, avoiding smoking and excessive alcohol consumption. Those things can all make a big difference.
So even though we've been talking about all these complex medical terms and conditions, it seems like everyday choices can actually have a pretty significant impact on our pH balance.
Absolutely. You'd be surprised how much those things can affect your body's internal environment.
Well, that's good to know. It means we have some control over this, even if it seems like a really complicated issue.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to be aware of it. Even if you don't have any symptoms right now, just understanding how pH balance works and what can affect it can empower you to make healthier choices.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power, as they say.
You got it.
Well, this has been incredibly insightful. It's amazing how much I learned about something I thought I kind of understood, but clearly didn't.
It's a complex topic.
It is, but you've explained it all so clearly. I think our listeners are going to walk away from this deep dive with a much better grasp of pH balance and its importance.
I hope so. And I hope it encourages them to think about their own health and the choices they make.
It definitely has for me. I'm already thinking about all the things I can do to support my body's pH balance.
And that's a great takeaway. It's not just about knowing the science. It's about applying that knowledge to our own lives.
Absolutely. And maybe, just maybe, this deep dive will spark some more questions for our listeners. It's given me so much to think about.
Yeah, like what other subtle ways might our daily routines be affecting this delicate balance? It's fascinating to ponder, isn't it?
It really is. It makes you realize how interconnected everything is, how everything we do, even the things that seem insignificant, can have a ripple effect on our health and well-being.
It's a constant dance between our internal world and the external world. And the more we understand about that dance, the better equipped we are to lead healthier, more balanced lives.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Well, on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. But remember, the exploration doesn't end here. Keep those questions coming, keep digging deeper, and most importantly, keep taking care of that amazing complex system that is your body.
Absolutely. Until next time, stay curious.
And stay balanced.